Hello and welcome to this video on how we approach brain retraining. So why is this important? Some of you may have watched my fundamental principles, the underlying principles for brain retraining video. And if you have, I've already started to allude to this topic, but I think it's important for us to delve a little bit more deeply into why this is so important. So, how we approach our retraining can have a significant influence on our trajectory of recovery. So, it's not just the tools that we're using or the actions that we're implementing, but looking at what is our orientation to those tools and actions, and what is our orientation to ourself as we're engaging in those tools and actions. And so, certainly, that self compassionate presence or loving kindness with ourselves helps. That kind of an orientation really helps us as we're moving along. And then looking at, how are we orienting to those practices themselves? Are we coming at it from a place of feeling pressured that we have to do this and that, we have to make progress? Are we coming at it from a place of we don't really want to do this? Maybe we've been doing this for a really long time and it's like feels like you're going to get your teeth pulled. It's just not a pleasant experience, but you kind of drag yourself through it. Or it may also be that you're on autopilot, right? Like this is part of your routine, something you have to do every day. You get up in the morning, you just go through on, autopilot rote. You go through the experience where you're not really present, you're not really engaged. And any of those states, if we're approaching our retraining from those states, we're not going to be getting the same level of benefits. And in some cases, we're actually reinforcing the maladaptive neural circuitry that we're trying to undo. So I would say the autopilot one, is a little bit more neutral. Maybe we're not reinforcing the maladaptive neural circuitry as much there, but certainly the one where we feel pressured to do it, or the one where we really don't want to do it or like to do it anymore, but we have to do it. We know we have to do it anyway, so we make ourselves, but we've got that kind of orientation and chatter in the back of your mind. In both of those cases, you're actually reinforcing the maladaptive pathways and the negative neurochemistry, if you want to call it that you're trying to override. And so you can see if, you've got this level of reinforcement of those maladaptive pathways, you're not going to be getting as much benefit out of the tools that are meant to prune away those pathways. And so this is where it is important for us to cultivate that curious observer and to start to reflect on, how are we orienting to this? How are we coming to our practices? And if we're not coming to it from an ideal place, what can we do to start to shift that? So one of the things I really like about the Gupta program is the founder talks about being playful and lighthearted about our retraining, right? Like orienting to it or coming to it from that place, that level of playfulness. We can also come to it from a level of self-compassion, right? Where we recognize that this is really good for us and that this is what's going to help us move into a level of health and well-being that we want. We can also sometimes connect it to our deeper motivation, our big why of why we want to get better, what's going to be available to us as we do that. How is it going to change the dynamics of how we show up in the world or our relationships with other people? And as we connect to our why, it gives us that motivation of, yes, I want to do this, even if I don't love it, I want to do it because I know that this is what's going to take me to where I need to go. Right. And the last piece about this is to really be aware of not waiting until you feel like it to engage in the tools and action steps that you need to do in order to retrain your brain. And so, I love that line from Dr. Joe Dispenza. In order to change, we have to think greater than how we feel. So if we're waiting until we feel like it, especially if we're in kind of a dip in our retraining process, we could be waiting a long time, before we actually feel like engaging in those tools. And what we fail to realize sometimes is not feeling like it is actually just an indicator that you're in limbic system dysfunction or nervous system dysregulation. And as you use the tools and change your neurochemistry and change your emotional state, that the feeling like it also changes, right? And so it is changeable. It's not set in stone. And one of the ways that we can really work with overcoming that idea or notion of living by our feelings is to cultivate that curious observer and to be able to step into that space of, oh, look at that. I'm not feeling like doing this right now. So you acknowledge that you don't feel like doing it, and then you go and you do it anyway. And you're coming at it from that place of loving kindness or self compassion. You're coming at it from the place of curious observer of, oh yeah, this is just a pattern that's playing out in my mind and my emotions right now. I don't have to believe what it's telling me, right? And I don't have to allow it to influence my choices when I know what's actually in my best interest at this time. So, hopefully, that's helpful to you. And I wish you every success in your retraining journey. Thanks for joining me today. Take care.